全てはそこで話そう。
Then, almost as if on cue, the bell began to ring. They all heard it. Oh, it was the bell from the clock in the main staircase. The bell rang 5 times, then ceased. We've only got an hour
時間が
left.
ない。行こう。
Slowly, one by one, they followed Junpei out of the bedroom. I don't think we should do it slowly. Let's do it quickly, actually.
さて、話を始める前に、一つだけ頼みがある。
I'm surprised they're just letting Junpei lead the charge here in the talk. You think once we start implicating people on the table that, you know, they would start, you know the Among Us moment where everybody starts fighting amongst themselves and giving false accusations and things like that. We're staying surprisingly calm here. Junpei stopped in front of door 3 and turned around.
セブン、ヤシロ、そこのレッドに手のひらを乗せてくれないか。
ん？
Ace, 7, and Lotus, could you please place your palms on the red? This is to go in 3. Which is... 3 is the door where Snake is dead. Yeah? I think this is the door which Snake's behind. I almost wish I had like a map to showcase like all the events and what was behind each door and stuff.
え？どうして？
We've talked about before, yeah, who it had to be that would have tricked Snake into going through the door, right? And this is a 3, so 7, 8, yeah, and then with Snake, 7 and 8, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't have been... I forget exactly how all the math worked out there, but I remember, you know, they were the ones... Oh wait, no, Lotus got pulled away. No, it was Santa and 7. Lotus got led away by Ace. Yeah. Okay.
シャワー室に入るのなら、向こうの数字の書かれてない扉の方から。
違うんだ。中に入るわけじゃないんだよ。だから、認証を済ませたら、すぐに扉から離れてほしい。
なんでだよ。
いいから黙って言うことを聞いてくれ。ニルスと四つ葉を殺した犯人。知りたくないのか？
Once you've authenticated, step away from the door. Does this cause the dead thing to happen again, or...? Junpei's implication was clear, and 7 understood perfectly.
わかったよ。
一宮とヤシロは？
いいだろう。
わかったわ。
Quickly, they pressed their palms onto the red. Once they finished, they stepped away from the door as Junpei had instructed. 3 asterisks shone from the red's display panel.
もしも、この装置は手のひらを乗せて反応する装置ではなく、
I don't think the device responds to a hand placed on it, yeah.
バングルが近づいたかで反応する装置だというのなら。
So you're saying, yeah, you could have implicated someone else in being the one that potentially did something, but instead using someone else's bracelet.
直接手を触れなくても。
Junpei approached it and held his bracelet over the scanner. He made quite sure he didn't place his palm on it, and instead only brought his bracelet near it. The 4th asterisk appeared. Just as Junpei had expected. It was possible to authenticate without placing one's palm on the red, so as long as the bracelet was brought near it, Junpei pulled the lever down. Yeah. I mean, this we knew. Door 3 opened like a hungry mouth. 9 long seconds passed. And the door shut, unfed. Junpei walked slowly back to the others who were waiting some distance from the door, talking to one another. Santa and Jun had joined them as well. Looked as though they hadn't found a chance to break into the conversation yet. As Junpei approached, they turned to look at him, curiosity plain on their faces. Before long, the other 3 did as well.
何がしたかったんだ？
さあ、
Ace knows. Clearly, they were all expecting some
Arigato.
answers.
ご協力感謝するよ。
You don't have to be handling this as like such a mastermind. That's probably what's really putting them on edge. Clearly, they'd hoped for something more forthcoming. He
時に
continued.
一宮。一つ聞きたいことがあるんだが、いいかな。
なんだね。
俺が誰だか、わかるか？
Do you know who I am?
何を突然。
いいから答えてくれ。俺は誰だ？
そんなの決まってるじゃないか。淳平くんだよ。
残念。外れた。俺は、サンタだよ。
What the? Huh? Fortunately, that's the wrong answer. Actually, I'm Santa.
なんだと？
Oh my god, you're doing the not being able to recognize faces thing. Yeah, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're playing to that. Yeah, okay. I see what's going on. I see what you're cooking. Yeah, that's why you said that. Ace's voice was full of surprise, but it was also tinged with confusion and fear. Everyone else looked nearly as surprised. Santa looked especially shocked to discover he was actually someone else. That's a funny line. If he spoke, however, the trap would be exposed. Junpei quickly
今俺
continued.
が着てるこの服はな、順平に借りたものなんだよ。で、順平が着てるのが俺の服。つまり俺たちは服を交換したってわけだ。
Uh-huh. Clothes I'm wearing, I borrowed from Junpei, and the clothes he's wearing are mine. But yeah, so that's why you have to mention the clothes, because it's only the ability to recognize faces.
そんなバカな、ありえない。
俺はサンタじゃないと。
当然じゃないか。
なんでだよ。どうしてサンタじゃないって思うんだ。
もしも君がサンタなら、さっきの4人では3の扉は開けないはずだ。
If you were Santa, door 3 wouldn't have opened for us just now.
1たす7たす8たす3イコール19。
Uh-huh.
1と9を足して10。数字根は1になってしまう。にもかかわらず我々4人の認証によって3の扉は開いた。なぜか。それは君のバングルナンバーが3などではなく。
He's cracking a little bit.
5だからか？
Only then, when it was too late, did Ace realize his mistake. He set his jaw and glared at
そ
Junpei.
の通り。俺のバングルナンバーは5だ。
As he spoke, Junpei lifted his wrist up to show everyone the bright red 5 on
悪いな
his
一
wrist.
宮。釜をかけさせてもらったんだよ。
I mean, I wouldn't say the 5 is bright red, but the bracelet is.
言うまでもなく、俺はサンタなんかじゃない。順平だ。
I'm still a little bit confused, and my brain is buffering and trying to catch up here, but
当然のことだ。バカバカしいぐらいに当たり前の事実。
I guess this is more so just revealing that you have the condition that we were talking about.
ところがそのバカバカしいぐらいに当たり前の事実があんたには分からなかったらしい。俺はあんたにこう聞いたよ。どうしてサンタじゃないって思うんだ？するとあんたはこう答えた。もしも君がサンタなら3の扉は開けないはずだってな。普通ならそんなことは言わない。俺がサンタじゃないことの根拠としてまず真っ先にバングルナンバーの件を挙げたりはしないんだ。
Okay, this is elaborate just to expose the fact that, yeah, Ace can't recognize people's faces.
普通はこう答えるだろう。たった一言だけ顔が違うってな。
What exactly was happening there was so obvious that it was going a little bit over my head just because it was the incredibly obvious thing right in front of my face, but they were making such a big grandiose reveal about it that I thought it was something crazier. You don't have his face.
一宮 あんたは総合失認症を患ってる。そうだろ。
Junpei's voice was quiet and calm. He knew the truth, so did Ace.
統合失認症
The others looked confused. I mean, Lotus shouldn't be.
さあな。
総合失認症っていうのは
You heard Lotus begin to explain it to them. Ace glanced at them, then turned back toward Junpei and sighed.
わかったよ。認めよう。私は確かに総合失認症だ。人間の顔を識別することができない。だからなんだと言うんだね。君は人の障害を笑って楽しいのか。
勘違いしないでくれ。笑うつもりなんかさらさらない。むしろ気の毒に思うぐらいだ。だが俺の推測が正しければニルスを殺した犯人は総合失認症である可能性が高いんだよ。
There's an excellent chance the person who killed Snake has... Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's the obvious case of it not actually being Snake, which my question then becomes, who the hell was it? I thought they, like, swapped the bodies, but... Ace's face tightened, his eyes
何
narrowed.
が言いたい。
Junpei leaned casually against the iron piping of one of the beds.
ズバリよ。一宮。俺はあんたが犯人なんじゃないかって。
Yeah.
そう思ってるんだ。
I mean, I came to this conclusion way earlier for different reasons, but... Yeah. Junpei was suddenly very aware of 5 pairs of eyes on him. He had their undivided attention now. The room had grown very, very quiet. Junpei took a deep breath.
バカバカしい。何を根拠にそんなことを。
Ah, this is quite the Ace Attorney line, and I haven't even played a lot of. Oh, that's funny because Ace. This is quite the Ace Attorney line because yeah, I've seen a little bit of Ace Attorney, but I haven't like played them or anything. But just that's ridiculous. What possible evidence do you? And then this little pose, and then you would reveal the evidence and say objection, and then they'd be all shocked and be sweating.
根拠は3つある。まずは、今から数時間前のことだ。
All right, let's completely break apart how we know Ace did
この
this.
大病室にある3つの扉を前にして、あの時俺たちは議論を戦わせた。その場にいた7人全員では、決して先に進むことはできない。そこで、犠牲となる一人を決めるべきだと、ヤシロが言い出して。
Lotus looked away awkwardly. Junpei glanced
あ
at
の
her
時
and
一
continued.
宮はこう言ったよな。自分がここに残ると。
Yeah, I mentioned this was suspicious at the
ど
time.
うしてそんなことを言い出したのか。簡単なことだ。一宮はシャワー室に転がっている死体を俺たちに見られたくなかったんだ。一宮が一人でここに残れば。
If Ace stayed behind, there were only 2 doors the rest of us could go through. Yeah, so you specifically stopped us from going through that
残
door.
った6人は必ず
Exactly.
8の扉。いずれかに入らざるを得なくなる。
I remember Ace having kind of a crazy reaction to me insisting on going through 3 anyway.
全員で先に進むとしたら3の扉。シャワー室には絶対に入れない。そのことを一宮、あんたは知ってたんだ。だから自分がここに残るなんてことを。
愛をよしてくれ。君が私の勇敢な行為に対して嫉妬したくなる気持ちもわからないでもないが、だからといって私の美談までも貶めることはないだろう。私はただ自己犠牲の精神を持って君たちの命を救おうとしたまでだ。
Even the way this is being delivered, it sounds like you're super lying. Like you're putting on this, oh, you're just jealous of my bravery and stuff.
自
Like,
己犠牲の精神。ね。
Junpei stared off into the darkness at something very interesting and lazily began dig a persistent bit of wax out of his ear.
あんたは知ってたんじゃないのか？
Thanks for that visual.
どの扉を通っても最終的にはこの大病室に戻ってくることになるって。
何を言ってる？知ってるわけがないだろう。
そうかな？
そうとも。
Pleading was not something they'd heard from Ace before. Yup. Junpei pulled the piece of wax from his ear, glanced at it, and flicked it off into the darkness. Thanks for
まあ
that.
いいだろう。
Okay.
根拠はあと2つある。俺があんたを殺人犯だと考えている根拠だ。その2つ目は、さっきも言った通り、あんたが総合失認症を患ってるからだ。
人の顔を識別できないような奴は悪人に決まっているか？
No.
それは偏見というものだよ、淳平君。
違う。俺はそんなくだらない理由で人を疑ったりはしない。
それじゃなぜ？
説明の前に、一つ重要な事実を伝えておこう。シャワー室に転がってる爆死体な。あれ。ニルスじゃないから。
Yeah. So everybody's gonna have a reaction to this, but if we get any reaction out of you... Yeah.
なんだと？
Ace's face went pale. The others looked confused as well. If the body
四
wasn't
つ葉から聞い
Snake's...
たんだ。ニルスの左腕は人工的に作られたものらしい。ところが、シャワー室の爆死体。仮に SO とでもしておこうか。
Like, I'm still very confused about what body this was. Like, who is this? Where did they get this body? Like, there's the Zero body, but that's clearly a whole different thing.
その SO の左腕は間違いなく生身の人間のそれだった。故に SO はニルスではない。
そんなバカな。
Ace had started muttering deliriously to himself, shaking his head back and forth. Yeah, this is what you want. Yeah, you're doing a great job, Junpei, attorney. Junpei was long past caring.
ところで、今仮に犯人が総合失認症ではなかったと仮定してみよう。その場合、犯人は SO はニルスではないということにすぐに気づいたはず。着ている服はニルスのものと同じでも顔が違うからな。一発でわかるだろう。ところが、どういうわけか、犯人はそいつを殺してしまった。なぜ？突如現れた見ず知らずの他人をどうしていきなり殺害する必要がある？
I mean, the only possible reasons I could potentially think of are to use it as a swap for Snake's body intentionally, because I thought that's what it was at the beginning. Like, when we first knew about this, I was like, they intentionally swapped the bodies to try and, like, trick us or make us, you know, take our thinking down a certain path, basically. But then cover up the fact that Snake was still alive? But, I don't know.
一方、犯人が総合失認症だとすれば説明がつく。そいつは SO をニルスだと誤認し殺害に及んだ。
Did we ever mention the like, I'm trying to remember across the various other times that we've looked at Snake's body when it was in that room. Did we ever mention the bracelet at any of those points? Because I'm assuming that that body had to have had bracelet 2 on it. Which is probably why you thought that was Snake in the first place. But if that's the case, where did they get Snake's bracelet and why did they have that bracelet? Like, I was thinking so many things about, like, where did the body come from and why was this switcheroo done in the first place? But, like, I'm imagining you probably looked at the bracelet and that's probably how you identified along with the clothes. But I don't remember if they ever actually mentioned seeing Snake's bracelet there. I can't remember that detail. We clearly mentioned the Ninth Man's bracelet. We didn't mention Clover's bracelet. There's been a lot of times where, like, the bracelets haven't actually come up when we've seen a body, I feel like. But maybe I'm misremembering.
待て、待ちたまえ。100歩譲って、私がそのエスオとやらをニルスだと勘違いしたとしよう。だが、もしも仮にそうだったとしても、私には動機がない。なんで私がニルスを殺さなければならないんだ。
Yeah.
理由は2つある。
Can think of at least two motives. Why would Ace want to kill Snake? So the first thing I think of is you wanting his bracelet. As we've already established, you have, or I assume you picked up the Ninth Man's bracelet and that's how you escaped one of the times. Like, you would have had the ability to do that. Let's see. 2, 1, B3. Yeah. I can't really think of a good reason, because I'm thinking of getting through the 9th doors, and you wouldn't really be helped out by having Snake's bracelet in that case. The only other thing I could possibly think of is if Snake has participated in the games like that document said, you would want him gone for that reason?
一つはニルスがあんたの過去を知っていたからだ。
Yeah. And yeah, that too, I suppose, because yeah, like I said, he's done stuff with the game before, but also if you know about your past. But if that's the case and you didn't want them knowing about your past, why did you just offload that information on Santa randomly?
そのことをみんなにばらされてしまうのはまずい。いろいろと面倒なことになる。そこで口封じのためにあんたはニルスを始末することにした。
I don't know how much I believe that motive.
2つ目、さらにニルスはあんたに対しておそらく恨みを持っていたはず。あんたはもちろんそのことを知っていた。それはあんたにとっては脅威以外の何者でもなかっただろう。いつ襲いかかって来られるかもわからない。
I could see the paranoia playing into that, I suppose. Like, if you had Snake in this game, but this also brings the question, like, why is Ace even here? I was kind of thinking Ace was the mastermind working everything behind the scenes this entire time because he worked with Cradle, but if it's a case of Zero put us all in here and made us play the game in an attempt to unveil this whole conspiracy with, or not conspiracy, but this whole thing going on with Cradle in the first place, and the fact that the Nonary games had been done before, if that was the intention of putting us all in here with Ace and making him fight for his life against us in the own game they made others do, I guess that would make sense. Just put us in here with a bunch of the people you used as lab rats and make you run another game, but this time your life's on the line as like a trick, as like a, you know, making you do what you've done to other people.
そう思うと気が気じゃなかった。あんたは戦々恐々としていた。だから一刻も早くその脅威を払拭すべく、あんたはニルスを。
なあ、ちょっと待ってくれ。
For the first time since the beginning of Junpei's explanation, someone besides Ace
一
spoke.
宮の過去って一体何があったんだ。どうしてニルスは一宮に対して恨みを。
これだよ。
He handed Santa a small piece
な
of
んだ
paper.
この紙切れは。
Santa squinted at the paper and
ノ
began
ナ
to
リー
read.
ゲームは今から9年前にも行われたことがある。バングルナンバー2番の者は当時のゲームにも参加している。それを画策したのはクレイドル製薬 CEO 本郷源太郎。なんだよこれ。
Uh-huh. Slowly Santa looked up from the paper. His eyes
ゼ
met
ロからのメッ
Junpei's.
セージだよ。一等戦室の金庫の中に入ってたんだ。
Suddenly,
いい加減にしてまえ。
Ace's face was red and shaking, and his voice was full of fury tinged with
こ
desperation.
んなものはでっち上げに決まってるだろう。誰かが私を陥れようとしてるんだ。
私をって今そう
Ah, yeah, yeah. Junpei's eyes narrowed and the trap began to close. I mean, given the context of the situation, I guess how you could interpret that as him saying I am that person, but yeah, no, I guess that does make sense. Starting to question it a little bit because him saying somebody's trying to frame me doesn't technically mean given like all of this, but no, if he says like yeah, someone's trying to frame me after we announce the name, then yeah, that's a pretty big red flag. Never mind, I'm stupid and sleepy. Ace inhaled sharply, his eyes flicked off of Junpei to something, anything
今の
else.
発言によってあんたは自分がクレイドル製薬の CEO 本郷であると認めたことになる。
Still confused why he readily volunteered this information to Santa.
間違いないな。
It was as though a switch had been flipped. The color drained from Ace's face, and as he realized what he'd done, his eyes went
あ
wide.
あ、そうとも認めよう。私は確かにクレイドル製薬の CEO 本郷健太郎だ。だからなんだと言うんだね。私は9年前に行われたノナリーゲームなんてものは全く知らない。その紙切れに書いてあることは全部デタラメだ。誰かが私を罠にはめるためにそんなものを。というか、そもそもだな。
Ace stammered as he tried desperately to work himself to a more tenable
純平君
position.
君はさっきから私が単独犯であるかのように主張し続けているが、ここで今一度よくよく考えてもらいたい。
Uh-huh.
一体どうすれば私がたった一人でニルスを殺せたりするのかな。
You're going to say because you needed 3 people to go through the door, and this is the 3 door, and I'm going to say, well, because you have the 9th man's bracelet, because it's gone, and 1 + 9, 10, and then +2 would be enough to get in there. So yeah, the idea that 7 had way earlier in the game where he said 3 people needed to go in to kill him, so it must have been 2 accomplices, is totally a lie. Or not a lie, but 7 didn't know, but...
ニルスじゃない SO だ。